yourself a critical question. You want to ask, what do I need to do today to live in alignment with my values? Then every day, do just one thing that shows you what's really important. Making a generational impact starts with one person, one family, one community. And so the Gen 1 legacy is my attempt to help first-gen tech professionals like you get your financial house in order so you can live your legacy. How do I want to be remembered? You know, the older I get, the more I linger on this question. And it's not because I'm intentionally looking for ways to gain notoriety. Instead, I've come to realize that I only have a finite amount of time to get done what I've been put on this earth to do. You know, the reality is that over time, my priorities have changed. You know, the motorcycle life that I once was so fond of in my youth is now long gone. And today, when I think about working out, it's more about staving off heart disease than it is toning down my waistline. But when it comes to how I want to be remembered, I'm reminded of a truly impactful quote that I came across recently, and it said that in 100 years, no one will remember who you are. It's shocking to think about, right? But in a way, I'm sure you likely already knew that intuitively, right? I mean, can you remember your great-grandfather's name without looking it up or asking a relative? You know, personally, I start getting depressed just thinking about this notion. But here's the thing. Instead of looking at this quote as being a cause for disappointment, I used it as my inspiration to purposefully write my life story. You see, in 100 years, few people will care about my corporate title or how much money I made or the square footage of my home or all the toys that I've owned. But you know, they'll likely be interested in my legacy, or rather the story of what I did with my life. Now, have you thought about your legacy lately? Have you thought about what folks will say about you in 100 years? And no, I'm not talking about the monetary inheritance that you're likely to leave behind. Instead, your legacy is a story that you want people to tell about you when you're not here to tell it yourself. But here's the thing though, your legacy can only be as solid as the vision for the ideal world that you're trying to bring into reality in the right here and now. Your legacy is something that you can make happen right now. It's not something that magically happens in the future when you're gone. That's why if you want to create a story worth remembering, then you need to prioritize your daily activities that align with your legacy building vision. Because if you don't, in 100 years, somebody else will write your story. And so at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, you know, what's the big deal? What happens when someone else writes your story? Well, consider the story of Nikola Tesla. Now, you'll likely recall that Tesla was an inventor, an engineer known for his contributions to the development of many things that we use today. Now, these are things that we think about like alternating currents, that electricity that comes into your house. We talk about wireless communications and a number of other innovations that you can look up on the web. But here's the thing though, Tesla's legacy has been shaped by historians in ways that emphasize certain aspects of his life while leaving out very important ones altogether. How so? Well, many times historians will portray Tesla as an eccentric genius who struggled financially and was overshadowed by Thomas Edison. In other words, Tesla wasn't as great as Edison. He failed and he didn't get as rich as Edison, right? Now, the trouble is that this portrayal of Tesla's legacy has created this narrative that often focuses on his rivalry with Edison and pays a lot of attention to his financial difficulties instead of the genius, the genuine passion that he had for science and innovation and the things that he actually brought into the world. You know, by many accounts, Tesla was deeply dedicated to advancing technology for the betterment of humanity as a whole. And you know, this dedication is evident in the numerous patents and the contributions to various fields, including electricity and radio and wireless communications. And ultimately, Tesla had this visionary approach to his inventions that was more focused on the potential impact to society rather than his own personal gain. In other words, he wasn't as concerned about the money as he was about the work. But the story that was written about him put this emphasis on money and his comparison to Edison. Now, had Tesla been able to shape his narrative more effectively, he'd likely be remembered for something more than being compared to Edison than he is today. He may have been remembered for not only his scientific genius, but also his integrity and his commitment to making the world a better place through his inventions. You know, money isn't the end-all, be-all when it comes to the contributions that we bring into the world, but maybe had Tesla put a little more thoughtfulness into his finances, into his daily habits, he'd been better known today as a visionary who had big impact on the world around him instead of the guy who got beat out by Edison, right? Indeed, your legacy goes beyond how you want to be remembered. It's about the impact you make through every little daily choice you make today. Now, the trouble is that so many of us want to do good. We want to make an impact in our families, in our communities, and the world around us. And now, certainly, you likely want to have an impact and do the right thing on a daily basis, right? But the trouble is that outside obstacles are often distracting us from focusing on our long-term goals. Indeed, in the context of building a legacy, you'll likely face a number of daily distractions like emails or social media notifications or urgent but not important tasks that compete for your attention. And these distractions tend to pull you away from activities that would otherwise contribute meaningfully to your vision for the future. In fact, these external distractors are relentlessly and seemingly everywhere getting your attention. And the trouble is that they make it very hard for you to stay focused on truly what matters because your attention is constantly being pulled from one fire that you need to put out to another, right? You're doing all this busy work, but you're not really making any progress. And so all those contributions or those well-intentioned plans that you'd laid out with your family or the time that you'd planned to contribute to your local nonprofit are once again put on the back burner. Now, here's the thing. This constant tug of war between the immediate demands of life and your long-term goals can lead to a complete disconnect in your life. That is, it can inflame those feelings of frustration and a sense that the demands of everyday life are diluting all of your best laid efforts. But here's the thing. Where you give your time and your energy is ultimately your choice. Because if you don't write your story, someone else will. Now, oftentimes, those daily distractions aren't a cause, but they're an effect. In other words, what if you're staying busy because you want to avoid thinking about the bigger picture of life? Now, let me tell you what I'm talking about here. You see, in the early 1970s, there was this psychologist by the name of Wayne Oates who found himself grappling with his own relentless compulsion to work. He found himself distracted by external things, or he thought he was being distracted by these external things. For him, it wasn't just about being sucked into the 9-to-5 grind. In reality, Oates was dealing with an internal struggle, and he couldn't understand his compulsion to work so much. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever felt the need to be the one to turn out the lights in the office at night? And so Oates did some digging. He looked internally and he used his own professional observations to eventually give a name to his struggles, which he called workaholism. And so as part of his discovery process, Oates ended up writing this book called The Confessions of a Workaholic: The Facts About Work Addiction. Now, the book itself starts off with an account of Oates' own life experiences and offers an inside look at how his work consumed his life, including how it cost him his personal relationships and ultimately his health. But here's why it all matters. It matters because Oates helps us give a modern day definition to workaholism. He helps us understand our own internal struggles and how they often manifest as external issues that distract us from doing the essential things in life. Now, you likely already have your own definition of workaholism, but let's go back to the original definition as described by Oates because it's quite telling. Now, Oates describes workaholism as an uncontrollable need to work incessantly, where an individual is internally compelled to work hard, often exceeding what is required. But the big question here is why? What would compel an individual to behave this way, right? Well, that's exactly what Oates talks about in his book. And so Oates goes on to talk about how traits like perfectionism or a need for control or the fear of emotional intimacy can drive a person deeper into the arms of their work. But the big takeaway here is that the struggles that individuals face internally often lead them to mask their problems with external solutions. That's why ignoring the internal struggles of doubt and uncertainty when it comes to writing your own life story can result in a lack of decisive actions towards building your legacy. So what happens if you don't do anything? What happens if you think you're doing something, but in reality, you're just engaging in busy work? Well, there's a cost. And the emotional toll could include a persistent sense of dissatisfaction and haunting questions of what if when it's too late? What if I started that side hustle? What if I made it to my kids' ball games more often? What if I took more time with that precious relationship? What if? What if? If you don't write your story, someone else will. So then what can you do to move past this internal and external struggle and get to a place where you can begin to write your own story and build a legacy that you want to leave behind? Well, the first thing that you'll likely want to do is to take the time to identify and get to know your values. Now, you'll likely recall that your values are not the things you aspire to be, but rather they're the things that are important to you right now. Now, this distinction between aspiration and actuality is crucial because aspirations are often externally influenced, while what you really value, or what's really important to you, is often something internally that already exists, something that you were already born with. Indeed, these are the things that you would genuinely care about if no one else was standing around and watching what you're doing every day or giving you feedback or giving those kudos that many of us are often looking for. But for now, what you need to know is that gaining clarity on what is truly essential to you allows you to filter out the noise and focus on what genuinely matters to you and to the legacy that you're trying trying to create. And so by defining your core values and the ultimate impact you want to leave behind, you can prioritize the actions and decisions that align directly with your life's purpose. And so how exactly do you go about doing this work? Well, you can start by asking yourself, do I truly understand what's essential in my life? And if not, how can I find out? Now, one thing to do here is to take the time to complete a values assessment. At the very least, review resources like James Clear's core value list. Either way, I've covered the topic of values discovery in my previous posts and episodes, so please be sure to check those resources out at legacygen1.com. But the big takeaway here is that doing this work will give you a solid base from which to make decisions. Now, the next thing you want to do is to be able to visualize what happens in your world after you're gone. And one helpful approach to this end is the practice of Maranasati meditation, or otherwise known as deathbed meditation. And what exactly is Maranasati meditation, you ask? Well, Maranasati meditation is a type of meditation that helps you not only think about, but also accept the idea of your passing away. Now, you're probably asking yourself, isn't this morbid? Like, why would I want to take the time to think about dying? Well, this kind of meditation encourages you to think about death as a natural part of life and to appreciate how everything in life is truly temporary. That's because when practicing Maranasati meditation, you might imagine what happens when you die, or think about the process of your body getting older and eventually not working at all. So at that point, what do you do, right? The goal here isn't to make you scared, but to help you value your life more fully in the here and now and worry less about the problems of your daily life. So then by frequently thinking about death in a calm way, what you're actually doing is giving yourself the ability to enjoy your life more fully. But isn't this an oxymoron? How can you exactly appreciate your life anymore if you're thinking about death at the same time, right? Well, that's because you can start to learn how to live in the moment and not get too upset about things that are impermanent or simply don't matter. Now, ultimately, this meditation can help you feel more at peace and ready to handle whatever life throws your way. So then to get started, you can start by asking yourself, in my final moments, who will I be surrounded by and how will I be remembered? Then consider all of the values that you've identified in the previous step that we just talked about. Then go find a quiet place and reflect on your life as if you've already lived it, as if you're already in that final moment. Then take the time to consider the alignment between where you're at right now, your current path, and the daily choices that you're making, and whether they've helped align you to that end spot, that place where you're at your final moments surrounded by your family. Then use this reflection to set your intentions or your goals for your day to bring you closer to that ideal life vision, and then keep track of these insights to help you guide your future actions. Now, the last thing that you'll want to consider as you're intentionally writing your story is to focus on your most important actions. Now, these are the things that you want to be doing each and every day to get you on your path and move you closer to the ideal version of your life story. And so what does this look like? Well, consider the story of Mike Flint. Now, Flint was Warren Buffett's personal pilot. And you remember Buffett, right? The Oracle of Omaha, the billionaire investor. Well, before working for Buffett, Flint had actually flown 4 US presidents. And so by many measures, he was an accomplished pilot, but he was looking for more. And so then, as Flint tells it, one day he approaches Buffett looking for advice to further his career. And so what did Buffett do? Well, Buffett asked Flint to list his top 25 career goals and then circle the topmost 5 important ones. And so at this point, Flint, as he tells the story, thought that he would, work on his top 5 goals immediately and then focus on the remaining 20 when he had free time, right? But, the story didn't go out that way. That's because Buffett gave Flint a surprising instruction. He told Flint that he should avoid the 20 uncircled items at all costs until he could achieve his top 5 goals. Now, these uncircled items, Buffett explained, these 20 items are not just distractions, but potential traps that could divert Flint's energy and focus him away from his most critical objection. Now, this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a great story, and it's more instructive than anything else to help us understand how important it is to stay focused on really what's truly essential. Not everyone has a single-minded focus and can achieve the top things in their life at the cost of all other priorities, right? But here again, Buffett's advice not only highlights the importance of focusing on your highest priorities, but also underscores the necessity of avoiding less critical tasks that can impede significant process to what you're trying to accomplish. That's why you'll likely want to take the time now to think about the small steps that you need to take each and every day to move you closer to the story that you want to write. With that said, I'm not talking about doing work for work's sake. More specifically, you'll want to make sure that you match your actions with your values. It's about taking intentional daily steps. It's like making sure each puzzle piece fits so so you can see the big picture of your dream life coming true. So then to begin, you'll want to start by asking yourself a critical question. You want to ask, what do I need to do today to live in alignment with my values? Then every day, do just one thing that shows you what's really important, whether that's being more kind or more helpful to others, or showing up for that ball game, or showing up to dinner. And if you can't do it every day, remember, it's okay to make mistakes. The most essential part here is to keep trying to live by your own value system and not what you think that others want from you. Ultimately, the point here is to do one thing that moves you closer to where you want to go. So then don't let another day pass you by. Go grab a pen, outline your vision, and commit to one small step that brings you closer to the legacy that you've dreamed about. Remember, the story of your life is yours to write. Now, if you're anything like me, then you'll likely want to be proud to hear what your family and loved ones have to say when they tell it. That's because if you don't take charge and define the legacy that you want to leave behind, you risk allowing life's daily hustle and others' agenda to shape your path and ultimately the steps you take. Remember, each day spent without aligning your actions with your true purpose is a missed opportunity to forge a meaningful legacy. Ultimately, the world will remember you not for just the good intentions that you had, but also what you did with your time. Indeed, if you don't write your story, someone else will. But what if you did end up writing your story in the way that you want it to be read? Imagine what could unfold in your life today if you decided to prioritize what truly matters. Picture a future where each day you commit to small, deliberate actions that align seamlessly with your deepest values and your goals. That's why it's crucial to not wait for another day or another year to go by to wonder what could have been, to ask that what if. So start now, start today, so you can not only begin defining what's truly important to you, but also so you can start writing your own story by taking one step closer to becoming the master of your own financial independence journey. To learn more about today's topic, you can visit the episodes page at legacygen1.com. And if you can find one person in your life who would benefit from today's message, please share this episode with them. But until next time, I'm Peter Donisanu, wishing you and yours abundant health and prosperity.
The Gen 1 Legacy Podcast is brought to you by Franklin Madison Private Wealth. Franklin Madison Private Wealth is a registered investment advisor firm with its registration and principal place of business in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The information shared today is not intended to be personal, legal, investment, or tax advice, or solicitation to buy or sell any security or engage in a particular investment strategy. The commentary and forecasts are limited to the dissemination of and general information pertaining to Franklin Madison Private Wealth's investment advisory services and are based on economic and market conditions that are subject to change without notice. For additional information about Franklin Madison Private Wealth, including fees and services, please contact Franklin Madison Private Wealth or refer to the investment advisor